I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey Dave, I'm thinking about doing another revolution. Do you want to join up? I might need some help with organising the pamphlets though.
Pop Culture Pastor.
So Cody, you were telling me that Marvel is writing get out of work notes for Loki season finale?
Yes. So, like, their marketing department has made up a generic, you fill in your own name and work site. And please excuse so-and-so from work today. They stayed up all night watching the season finale.
For the next day.
Yeah. So
it comes out at like 8, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come out that late. And it's like an hour long.
So I found it particularly interesting considering they have a major movie coming out.
Yeah.
And they did not do that for the major movie.
Well, I think Marvel's desperate. I think Marvel Studios is super desperate right now. And I think everything they're doing seems super desperate. And we'll get to that because we're going to talk about that in the news segment. We're going to talk about the Marvels and how it's being received.
Although I will highlight that my dear friends at the Walt Disney Corporation,
Close friends.
close, they are they're almost done purchasing Hulu, like finalizing that.
They were always attached though, right?
Yes, they had a partnership, but now there's an $8 billion buyout. And so those services will come under one platform officially.
Well, that was what was holding us back.
That was.
That was why the Marvel stories were getting worse. Now that they got Hulu, it's all fixed. Everything's golden.
We're back.
I hope are you picking up the sarcasm?
I thought you were being serious.
Hello, welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor. My name is Dave. Cody's here.
I will write you an excused absence note if you need to excuse yourself from work to listen to the podcast.
It carries no authority.
It really doesn't. I will put Pastor Cody on it and see what that gets you.
I mean, I know that's Marvel trying to be cute, but also it just reeks of desperation. Marvel reeks of desperation right now.
Well,
do we just need to talk about this first?
Well, yeah, but again, you pointed out that on the East Coast it releases at 9. So that's the latest anyone's viewing it is.
Yeah.
You have a choice.
Right. That's why it doesn't make so if it doesn't make sense as an ad campaign, then it's desperate. They know they've got something good with Loki. If you've been listening to watch-alongs, we're liking the show. It's a good show. They're telling a good story. So they're trying to here's the problem. The numbers are way down on it though. People aren't watching it like they did in earlier Disney Plus shows. And they're desperate because they know the Marvels is not as good. So the reason I can say that, first of all, this is the news segment of Pop Culture Pastor. I can tell you that right now on the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, the Marvels is sitting at 53%. That's the third lowest in MCU history.
What's it ahead of?
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania at 46% is the worst overall. And it's the second worst. The one right above it is the Eternals, which, if we're being fair, I think the Eternals just gets a bad rap for where it's positioned.
Yes.
Because I would maintain that the Eternals is a much better movie than Ant-Man Quantumania. Much, much better. And deserve to not be rated so harshly.
So I think if my dear friend Marty Scorsese watched the Eternals, he'd love it. He'd be like, this is cinema. Compared to the other stuff. Because it's more of an art film.
He would watch it with his dog, Oscar.
Yes.
And they would enjoy it. It would be like art house films, right?
Very much
just
so.
like it. So I think unless you're living under a rock, you've heard some spoilers about the Marvels. unless you've been intentionally trying to avoid them. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything right now. Let's just say there were very, very late additions to this movie.
What?
In the form of one, a post-credit scene that they intentionally threw in there because they needed something to hype. And they're hyping it. Like, they're not even trying to keep it a secret. Everybody knows about this scene. It's all over Twitter. Like, I've already seen the scene, and I didn't even go looking for it.
So I only know vague generalities about it, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't gone looking, and right now my Twitter, my X feed is about sports.
But Marvel themselves have been pushing this, and it's because they're desperate. And it's because they know the Marvels is not up to par. We'll of course, reviewing it on the next pod. So this pod drops on Friday. We're gonna go see it this weekend, and we're gonna review it, and we're gonna be fair. But I just think everything Marvel Studios is doing right now reeks of desperation, and then the Loki thing just goes along with it. And the Marvels being the third lowest. It is above Eternals, by the way. Eternals is 47%. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is 46%.
You know what? Thor: Love and Thunder's looking better all the time.
No! It was the beginning of the end.
It was
So
the
far.
last hoorah.
Oh, man. So ticket sales are tracking beneath Black Adam and The Flash. Oof.
That might be embarrassing.
That would be very embarrassing. Like, they're going to take a hit on this. I am hopeful that it could surprise me.
What I've been told by the few reviews I have read, which they were not like critics, like literally you clicked on their profile, it did not say film critic, this podcast or this blog, whatever. It was just general fans, and they're like, it's cute, it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it being not super long might help it. I've seen mixed reviews from reviewers I trust. So, yeah, it might be middle of the road, and frankly, that might not be bad for Marvel right now.
My dear friend Marty, he made a 3.5 hour movie, and it loses points because it's too long. And like, it might have actually been a great movie if it was like an hour shorter. Where if you don't have a great script, I think you go short.
Yeah.
That's what you should do. You don't have a good story, go short.
Well, speaking of Marty, let's go into the ongoing narratives we've been exploring here in the news section, because it seems like every week someone piles on. First of all, I think it's great now that Marvel's struggling a little bit, that now we're getting more and more people piling on. Like, what a bunch of cowards. Say something when they're making billies.
Well, that was me. So, welcome.
Cody is a better man than Marty.
Welcome to the team.
This week on the artiste side, we add Jeremy Allen White. Do you know who Jeremy Allen White is? No one does.
I feel there is a famous Alan White that's not Jeremy.
Yeah, it's a library thing.
Yeah, William.
No, Jeremy Allen White is the star of TV shows such as the Shameless and The Bear. Current star of a show called The Bear.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, about a chef.
He's in the new wrestling movie.
Yeah, The Iron Claw, the movie about the Von Erichs, which I would love to see.
I'm ready for that one.
Yeah, that Zac Efron. And Jeremy's in that one as well. And I'm actually excited to see that movie.
I believe wrestler MJF is in it as well.
I don't know who that is.
Maxwell.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. He did, in fact, meet with Marvel executives once for an undisclosed role.
Yeah.
But he had an attitude, apparently, on his own admission about joining the MCU. This is all for an interview he did, where he's, of course, relaying this information because he's got to tell you how much of an artiste he is, right?
Well, someone needs to.
He says, quote, I had a meeting for a kind of Marvel-y movie, and I had an attitude. I think I played it all wrong. He said he told the Marvel executives, tell me about why I should do your movie, which did not come off well, he says. Well, gee, imagine that. Jeremy, whoever you are.
Alan White.
I mean, they were like, expletive U, White recalled. And I was like, right on. Okay, well, at least he took it well.
The Bear, critical success.
Yes. Yeah.
Critics love it.
It's true. It's true. I've heard good things.
And I'm hearing good things around the Iron Claw. And so, I do think there are certain actors that if you want their quality of acting and you are not making films that are Oscar contention, because like most comic book movies aren't, unless it's for like graphics or something.
Yeah, right.
So if you're wanting him for a non-Oscar contender, then you better be pitching a great idea with some serious do-re-mi.
Okay, I would agree with that. But also, they're two different things. The makers of Marvel movies know they're not going after Oscars. It's not even the realm they're in. They don't intend it to be that way. So, and the people that see them, I'm not going to see an Oscar-winning movie.
Although, my dear friend Chloe Zhao, she made one that was a great story and visually stunning.
It's true. The story could have been helped a little bit, but that's maybe not her fault. The studio has a lot to do with that in Marvel. Anyways, just Jeremy Allen White was asked by someone, when are you going to do a Marvel thing? And he said, nowadays, that's the question targeted at rising stars. And he said this, quote, I'm confused at how the pinnacle of an actor's career has ended up in that place. He said, adding, they get really good filmmakers to do those movies, and obviously they get good actors to do those movies. But he doesn't understand why that's the pinnacle. Well,
I'm with him.
it's because they make a lot of money. And you make a lot of money.
So, he could just say what everyone in the room knows, that superhero movies at times appear to be a cash grab. And so, if you haven't had a big payday, go for the cash grab. Now, I will say, like in Tom Holland's case, he was an up-and-coming actor who definitely has acting chops, and this put him on everyone's radar. So it can be a good thing as well, but
not just Tom Holland. Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, they were known, but they were nowhere near the level of star where they could just about command about what movies they wanted to do before Marvel.
Chris should have stayed away from Fantastic Four.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Evans was like I said, known, but nowhere near. He was Jeremy Allen White level, right? Except he wasn't even considered that great of an actor, I don't think. I think people would probably say Jeremy Allen White is an up-and-coming actor.
Yes.
But the reason those people do it is because now look at their careers. They can do whatever they stinking want to do. Now, let's change it to someone who is already known, like RDJ.
That was kind of his, I'm back, baby.
Yeah. Here, let me fill you in on Robert Downey Jr., you youngins, because some of you youngins may not know. Everyone knew that RDJ had tons of talent.
I did.
He had trouble. Mm-hmm. He got really into drugs and was an addict, went to prison for a while.
Sadly.
Came back, did some movies, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is was kind of the one that brought him back into the public eye, oh man, he still got it.
And more of a, it wasn't a major box office film, but
Yeah,
it's
right.
one that people in the know who watched it were like, oh, he still has it.
Now, at that point, he could have said, no, I'm a serious auteur, and I'm not doing Marvel movies. He could have done that, and he would have had a fine career. Because, look, he's going to get nominated for Oppenheimer. Do we agree on that?
I've already given him the award.
I mean, he might win it. He's that good. So don't give me the thing where, well, if you do a Marvel movie, you're not going to be taken seriously anymore. Well, then explain RDJ.
So I do know that like young thespians have complained, and not just with superhero movies, like anything that's a franchise, that it consumes your career for a while and limits the potential of other projects that you may be considered for that would be like Oscar worthy projects, but it's going to for sure get you a payday where you don't have to worry about getting paid in the future. You can do these indie artsy films. Like that was the concern of Jennifer Lawrence when she signed on for the Hunger Games. That was the concern of Emma Stone with Spider-Man. These are legitimate concerns and questions to have.
But it's worth it. Maybe not in the Emma Stone case, because that was only ended up being 2 movies. But Jennifer Lawrence is another great example. There was Jennifer Lawrence before Hunger Games, and then there was Jennifer Lawrence after Hunger Games, which was she's significantly more visible, more in a position to choose her projects. Like it brought her to a place that she wouldn't have been without Hunger Games. RDJ commands, like, listen, all the rumors are that with all the timey-wimey stuff with Loki and Avengers Secret War, that there's going to be a soft reboot, and all the rumors out there is that RDJ is coming back.
Don't do it.
Well, there's lots of sources that say he is, and he's going to make $25 million a movie.
Well, at least.
And he's going to win an Oscar for Oppenheimer. Like, you can be both. You can be a serious artiste and auteur, and you can do comic book movies, and it can be just fine.
Although, don't question my dear friend Christopher Nolan.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a news story that's been coming across that like people keep asking him about The Dark Knight, where it compares with all these new superhero, and he doesn't address it. He's like, that was just one point in my filmmaking career. I'm on to other things.
Do you know why? Because Chris Nolan appears to have some humility. Because all of this sounds like sour grapes to me. When Marty Scorsese does it, it sounds like sour grapes. That's why that video that the Joe Russo did with the joke about naming his dog Box Office, that's why that was so hilarious, because he's getting at the problem that Marty is only outspoken about Marvel movies because he's a little envious of the money they make and the power of the people that go to see it. And the same with this guy, Jeremy Allen White. Someone asked him about when are you going to do a comic book movie. Then he recounts about how he failed in an attempt to get a role with them because he played it with an attitude. And then they were like, then his obvious conclusion is, well, that's because they don't want real actors.
I like to think that it wasn't even Marvel or DC. That was probably the movie Kick Butt, as I will word it. And that he might have been that guy because like...
Yeah. He said it wasn't it was Marvel E.
Yes.
But he's not the only one now. Now they're all trying to pile on because now Ridley Scott has something to say.
Yeah. 80-year-old Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott doesn't like the superhero movies either. And he says this, quote, "The best films are driven by the characters. And we'll come to superheroes after this if you want because I'll crush it. I'll crush it.
Yeah.
But they're boring as... That's what he recently told Deadline in an interview. By his account, Scott said, I've made 3 great scripted superhero movies. One would be Alien. All right. That seems more sci-fi horror, but okay.
There is a comic book now.
Yeah, but the movie came first.
Okay.
One would be, his words, not mine, expletive, Gladiator. One would be Gladiator. Again, don't know that that's a superhero movie, but okay. I see what you're getting at. It's a hero's journey for sure.
Good action movie.
And one would be Harrison Ford and Blade Runner. Now, Blade Runner has all the cult classic style type stuff where it gets a lot of respect now. But let's be really clear. Nobody liked Blade Runner when it came out. Nobody saw it. Nobody paid money to see it. It was a bomb.
I did not watch Blade Runner 2049 or whatever the one is.
Yeah, because you know why? Because nobody cared about the original that much.
I did watch the original.
Not as much as Ridley.
Yes.
And all of this is funny coming from Ridley Scott, who's going to out comic book movies when he's in the middle of making Gladiator 2 that nobody asked for.
It didn't make sense to me.
And the news story breaking this week, about a week ago, was that he was working on a baboon fight scene.
Yeah.
Where the main person in this ancient Roman Empire story is fighting a group of baboons. And I'm just like, okay, Ridley. Okay, I'm sure yours is serious entertainment. That's Marty would say that is real cinema.
Yes.
But before we could even get to this point to record, Ridley Scott was in the news again.
My buddy Ridley.
And this time, Ridley was not going after the comic book people.
Oh, well, good.
He's going to go after historians.
Well, someone needed to. Get off your high horse.
Ridley Scott, returning to theaters this month, he did a movie about Napoleon. It's called Napoleon.
Features in the trailer War Pig by Black Sabbath.
Yes.
So,
listen, Napoleon, for the uninitiated, is a real historical figure. Okay?
Allegedly.
So, was he, or is it all part of a vast left-wing conspiracy? It's all that Hillary Clinton, I tell you. But no, he's a real dude. You're making a movie about a real dude. Now, like, if you're not making a biopic, that's fine. But the name of the movie is Napoleon.
It has been promoted as somewhat of a biopic.
Yes, they're definitely kind of promoting it like that. Now, I am not a historian. I did major in history at KU. I didn't finish that major because I switched my majors, but I love history. And I will tell you that preview, that trailer, features a scene where Napoleon's army is firing cannons at the Great Pyramid in Egypt.
Don't do that.
Which never happened. That did not happen. You know how I know that? Because there's no holes in the Great Pyramid in Egypt where cannonballs would have hit them. Because that didn't happen. Because nobody would have fixed that. You don't fix that. That's hole in rock, right? Okay? So it's not something super historical. Well, somebody actually commented, a historian, Dan Snow, who called out some of the inaccuracies in a TikTok post that went viral. Snow argued what I just said. Napoleon didn't shoot at the pyramids. And he said that Marie Antoinette famously had very cropped hair for the execution. And Napoleon wasn't at that execution.
That I actually did know. That she wasn't, or that he wasn't at her execution.
So first of all, is he saying that to be like critical of Ridley Scott? No, because I think as a historian, he's just saying, hey, this isn't what really happened. But I bet if I watched that video, he'd say, but it's a dramatized account. It's a movie. I bet he makes reference to that. Well, Ridley Scott had things to say. First of all was get a life.
Yeah, you tell those historians on TikTok.
Yeah. Ridley said, we'll go win an Oscar and then you can talk, or something along those lines.
He's a historian. He doesn't write films.
Yeah.
Or direct them.
But again, there's this whole idea that, why do these dudes get so old and grumpy?
Because they made Blade Runner.
I mean, look, I've enjoyed a lot of Ridley Scott's movies. I enjoyed Gladiator. I'd like to see his Napoleon movie. And I'll go into it knowing, hey, this isn't a historical. It's the same thing if I watched The Passion of the Christ and understood this isn't the Bible.
And so, historical fact, during Jesus' time, they reclined at tables, and they weren't like tables.
Yeah.
And so there's a joke in that movie that Jesus made like the first table that has like chairs that you sit up at. It's ridiculous. But so for me, I would kind of compare this. Maybe it should be compared with like Amadeus. That's like an over the top, dramatized, based on a real life figure. Some of the events have been glammed up.
Yeah, you don't call it a biopic.
Yeah.
It's just entertainment. It is what it is. And if, like using Black Sabbath in the trailer, it's sort of hinting at that. You're sort of saying, hey, this is about historical figures, but we're using current music to kind of, that's a trigger, an internal trigger that should tell the watcher, oh, we're playing around with it. We're stylizing it. Like a 300.
Yes.
300, the story of the 300, that Zack Snyder's film, is actually based on a real event that happened in history. Now, it's been mythologized and it's legendary.
And comic bookized.
Yeah, it's been everything. So it's about the Battle of Thermopylae, but it's been so blown out. You don't know what like the real story. We don't know what the real story is, but we do know that it's true. They were outnumbered.
All I know is this is Sparta.
This is Sparta, and I'm going to kick you in that hole. I'm going to kick you in that hole, Ridley Scott. But yeah, I don't know. It's all so crazy. It's just like, can't we just enjoy the movies?
What would my friend, now I've lost her name.
How am I going to go watch any Marvel movies from now on and not feel bad? Because I think my friend Marty Scorsese is going to judge me back poorly. It makes me not want to see Marty's movies. And frankly, I said last week or 2 weeks ago, I've never repeat watched a Marty movie. Never.
So my dear friend Nicole Kidman just wants us to go and enjoy the cinema.
You see, Nicole's a solid person.
I'm sure she might be getting paid by Big Cinema to say go enjoy the movies.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. Greta Gerwig is set to begin filming the Chronicles of Narnia series.
Oh, I have such anxiety about this.
I know. We all
Not
do.
because of Greta. I actually think she'll do great. The issue is, which was kind of the issue with Harry Potter, but kids age out. Mm-hmm. And like clearly these are meant to be kids, not meant to be adults. And so like you can't like age up the characters or it kind of changes the whole story.
So it's going to be a series. And I think if you do the seasons like kind of they've done Stranger Things, but you got to start off with kids that are super young. I think super young that can actually play a couple years older, that are convincing to do that, because then I think you can do it. Because the stories, the kids get older, you know, as the stories go along in the books. So I think it can be done, and they just got to go faster than Stranger Things is going.
Those kids are going to look older than Dave the next season that it drops.
That is old, y'all. Scott Stuber, head of Netflix Film, was talking about it on Collider. He did an interview with Collider. He's excited. Specific details about the adaptation aren't, they're really not being forthcoming with those, but he did share that Netflix's intent is to start this project really soon, so maybe the new year. And he said, I think people know that we're aspirationally trying to get Greta's Chronicles of Narnia together and get that out there, which will be next year. He says it's a movie, so maybe they're doing them in movie forms, each book.
Oh, I still have anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe that they did here some, I don't know, what was that, 10, 15 years ago? It was after Lord of the Rings, right? Because they kind of wanted to capitalize on that. And the first one was good. Everything after that was really
Literally, Prince Caspian is now doing T-Mobile commercials.
And that would be Cody's doppelganger. Ben Barnes, otherwise known as the doppelganger to Cody Haviland.
I will name it and claim it, although we don't look alike.
Oh, it's on his bio page. What do you mean you don't look alike?
We don't look alike.
You look exactly alike. Okay, that's pretty much all our news. We're going to go into our main segment right after this. We're going to be talking about the most disappointing seasons of television ever.
I'm so ready for this one.
Yeah, I think we're all ready. We'll be right back. Cody's getting all mad. We're not even recording, and Cody's like going into so he's ready to talk about this topic.
Oh, yeah, because it's weird what some people consider disappointing or the worst season of a show. And I will be clear, there does need to be some parameters. Like some series, it ends on a cliffhanger, and so you're like, oh, so disappointing because there's not a next season because the studios didn't pick it up or whatever. That's not the case with this list, people.
Yeah, it was just interesting because you were sitting here getting mad.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you're yelling at me. I'm like, why? We're not even recording, bro. And why are you yelling at me? I didn't do it.
I'm
I
not
didn't put
here
it on a list.
for the Jeffrey Dean Morgan slander. You quit slandering him.
There will never be Jeffrey Dean Morgan slander on this show.
That's a promise.
Not even the really emotional pandering part he did for Grey's Anatomy. We won't even slander that.
I'm not going to.
Because we love Jeffrey Dean Morgan here on Pop Culture Pastor.
Yes.
He's the man. And he was great in Watchmen.
Might have been the best part of the whole movie.
Yeah. And the Flash movie really should have used him as Thomas Wayne instead of Michael Keaton as Bruce.
Made zero sense.
Yeah. Anyways, here we are. We're going to talk about the most disappointing seasons of television ever. And I think before we get even into the specifics, we got to talk about what makes a disappointing season of television, because we really have to define that.
Oh, yeah.
Because, listen, it has to be something that was good. You can't say, well, this season of Full House was disappointing, because all the seasons of Full House were disappointing.
Burn! And so, with...
I want a reaction out of that. If you're mad about that, let me hear it.
Like, with Law and Order shows and CSI shows, I mean, they're all the same. Mm-hmm. Like, you might be tired of the same old, but it doesn't change unless the actors change. Like when they got rid of Grissom, I'm gone.
Yeah. Right. So it's got to be something that was really good.
Yes.
And had a season where you were like, what was that? Or it could be something that was really anticipated. Mm-hmm. Like had good talent attached to it. Everybody thought it was can't miss. And then it came out and it was just bleh.
Previous Marvel show that I will not mention.
Which one? Which Marvel show?
I will not
Secret
mention.
Invasion?
Maybe. I'm not mentioning.
Look, we could say Secret Invasion might be up there on the most disappointing seasons of television ever.
If it's a one-off, then I don't know if you count it. Just because, miniseries...
You have to go anticipation.
Yeah.
And I think it was anticipated, and why wouldn't it be with the level of talent they had attached to it? And it was Marvel. We had some anticipation for it because it's a Marvel project, and because of the story that they're borrowing the title from. People love that story. It's a classic story in comics, and then you come out and you give us this terrible story with the Nick Fury kissing a green woman.
The issue I have is the series or the season becomes the whole show because it's just one season.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It would be more practical to talk like the obvious one. The elephant, the king-size elephant sitting on all of us in the room is Game of Thrones. So the last season of Game of Thrones is absolutely terrible.
Coffee cups galore.
Yeah, they didn't even care about trying to get, non-props out of the filming angles, right? And they outpaced George R.R. Martin's writing because George R.R. Martin is not going to finish the story before he dies.
Spoilers.
He's too busy rolling in the HBO money now. He doesn't care. He never cared about you. Let's just talk about that. Side note, George R.R. Martin never really cared about his readers. He gives you a story where he thwarts every trope, which is interesting to us. But as it turns out, we kind of like the tropes. Because as we've talked about, we like the same story over and over. We've talked about that many times. Did I ever tell you the story when I read The Red Wedding in the book? When I read it, I threw it across the room. Mm-hmm. I was so mad.
Drop kicked it.
And that's what he does over and over again. He makes you care about characters, then he kills them off in some brutal, terrible way. Because there's no good guys and bad guys in his stuff. It's just everyone's terrible, everyone's broken, and the world's broken, and everyone dies. Which, if I wanted that, I would just, I wouldn't go I wouldn't need entertainment.
I would just watch Sean Bean's filmography. That's what I would do.
So the TV show outpaced George R.R. Martin's writing, which, like, look, whatever we want to say about George R.R. Martin, we can say he's an accomplished writer. Then it was up to HBO's screenwriters to try and write the rest of the story. It was junk.
I'll take your word for it. I didn't watch it.
They had to do it in a big hurry because the actors wanted out and they couldn't afford to do it anymore. And it was a mess and gross and disgusting. And up to that point is one of the better TV shows of all time, in my opinion. It's top 20.
Okay.
I think it's top 20. The last season of it was utterly atrocious. Characters go outside of what you had expected from their characters. The story doesn't make sense. It's wrapped up in a way that's not tidy at all, and it felt like not thought out. And so it was just a recipe for disaster.
Word.
And so that's what we mean by disappointing. In fact, it colors people's opinions about the whole show.
So I also took this to be more along the lines of worse seasons of a show.
Of a good show?
Not necessarily good.
Because if it's not good, then how can it be disappointing?
Well, because if there was multiple seasons and people were on board early on, and then it jumps the shark at this particular point, you ruined what was a good show and made it disdain. Luckily for HBO, that was the last season of that show. If it happened to be like halfway through their run, oof.
Yeah. I mean, like Smallville would be one I'd put on this list. Most people think it was like, the last season or next last season, but actually Smallville started getting disappointing somewhere around season 4.
I was going to say episode 2.
Stop that. No Smallville slander. Unless you're talking about after season 3. Because once they get to the point where like Clark finds cave drawings by ancient Native Americans who have had contact with Kryptonians, then I'm like, no.
I believe it.
No.
I believe it.
That is nonsense.
That's the part I would actually tune in for.
I mean, they might as well have just said that Kryptonians helped build the pyramids in Egypt. It wouldn't have been any less ridiculous.
Well, I've already heard enough Egyptian stories. I need indigenous stories, Dave. So, I would highlight for DC fans, Arrow.
Yeah.
So, after season 3 of Arrow, they're no longer doing the flashbacks to the island. Mm-hmm. And the flashbacks to when he's on the island of Lian Yu, that was really what intrigued me. Like learning how Oliver Queen becomes the Green Arrow, how he develops this skill set, him surviving, how Slade becomes this bad guy. And I'm here for it. But then once we're back to modern time and then they have him going back to the island in between times, and I'm like, no, just stop making the show. Just stop. You had it and you lost it.
I did not watch Arrow, but I know Arrow season 6 is on this list I'm looking at.
They lost it before season 6. It was about season 4.
Is there any other ones you want to highlight before we just get into a list of them and kind of discuss that? Because I have a couple I just want to highlight for sure.
So maybe, and I mean maybe, we will have to revisit it. It could be this past season of From.
Oh, yeah.
But if season 3 just knocks it out of the park, you had a whole season 2 of build-up, which I'm good with. But not everyone, their mom likes that.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, From, I don't know where I'm at after that season of From. So if you're not watching From, it's on, what's that network? I watch it on Prime, Amazon Prime.
Just look it up on Prime.
It's got Harold Perrineau from Lost.
Or Sons of Anarchy.
I say Lost because this has some of the creators of Lost involved in the project.
It does.
And season 2 reminds me a lot of the last season of Lost.
Which is on some people's list.
Which, yeah, if we're talking about disappointing TV seasons, we got to talk about, because the last season of Lost was disappointing for a lot of people. Now, I would say that they didn't understand the show to begin with.
Oof.
They thought it was a show where they were going to answer all the questions, but I think that show was never about the answer to the mystery. It was just about the mystery. The whole show was driven to get you to talk about and think about what was going on, but then the show was about the mystery and the people in it.
Well, there's a mystery in this one.
In what one?
From.
Yeah. I think of a show called Prison Break. Were you a fan of Prison Break?
I'm familiar with Prison Break.
First of all, they're doing a redo. Someone's rebooting Prison Break.
I don't know if we need that.
I don't know if we need it either. But Prison Break season 1 and even season 2 were both pretty good. Season 1 of Prison Break, I would say, is one of my favorite seasons of television ever. It'd be in my top 20 maybe. Really, really good. It starred, what was that guy's name? Wentworth Miller, who was Captain Cold in The Flash. Mm-hmm. And Dominic Purcell, who just married Haley. No, what the pop star that was on Nickelodeon as alter ego? What? Billy Ray Cyrus's daughter, Miley Cyrus. He didn't marry Miley Cyrus. He married Miley Cyrus's mom.
Oh.
So her and Billy Ray got divorced, apparently. And Dominic Purcell married. Anyways, I don't know what, like, this isn't Entertainment Tonight. You don't need to know that. It just came to my mind.
And that was a Disney show, Dave. How dare you disgrace Hannah Montana?
Look, I wasn't watching Hannah Montana, okay? I was an adult. We didn't watch things like that.
So he also was a character in other DC stuff with his co-star from Prison Break.
Yeah, so they were in other shows, but they were the same character.
No.
Yes.
No.
What show are you talking about?
Like, they were the same characters, but they were a team in those shows.
They were. So Wentworth was still Captain Cold. Who was Dominic Purcell?
Well, now you're making me look it up, and I didn't have that ready.
What character in the Flash's parade of villains?
Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah. He was in Legends of Tomorrow as the same character.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll look it up right now. Legends of Tomorrow, American television series. He was Heatwave.
He was.
Captain Cold and Heatwave. Duh.
I knew he had an opposite power.
I love half of our pods always end up being me trying to remember someone's name. Why is that? Should I be concerned about that? Should I be worried?
You need to take your vitamins.
Oh, yeah, I don't do vitamins. I mostly just eat cheeseburgers.
That's the issue.
Another one, and I'm going to mention this one along with Prison Break because they have something in common. So there was a show back in the early 2000s, and you're thinking, well, the MCU was the first one to really bring superheroes into the zeitgeist. And you would be wrong.
You would be.
Because, first of all, the Dark Knight trilogy, but someone did it on TV that really hit the zeitgeist with their first season, and that was a show called Heroes. Save the cheerleader, save the world. Why do you say that? Season 1 of Heroes is one of the best seasons of television ever.
And so this is where I say HBO and Game of Thrones feel lucky you just had a bad last season.
Yeah, because after season 1 of Heroes, they actually do, how many seasons of that did they do?
They did. They should have stopped at 1. That's the answer.
Heroes television show.
4 seasons.
4 seasons. Everything after season 1 was trash. Absolute garbage. Do you know what happened?
I tried to block it out. So you're going to bring up hurtful memories.
In between season 1 and season 2, something happened. A writer's strike. And when they came back, they rushed it, and it wasn't as good. And the writer's strike ruined Heroes. And by the way, it's something it has in common with between season 1 and season 2 of Prison Break. Same thing, writer's strike. And both Heroes and Prison Break, they were just far worse after the writer's strike. And I think we should look for that in TV shows. Like, what was a good TV show last year? Maybe in its initial season. Is there one that's going to continue?
Severance.
Okay. It'll be really interesting to see what season 2 of Severance looks like.
I will say Scrubs happened during the writer's strike, and I think they had maybe their best season post-writer's strike.
Yeah, I mean, it's not I don't think it's a end all be all.
Although their last season might be one of the worst seasons ever, but there's some issues with that just because with Scrubs, season 9, it was projected as kind of like Cheers to Frasier. And so it was supposed to be the Frasier. And it wasn't supposed to follow any of the same people. There wasn't really supposed to be overlap. It was just kind of a new crew at the hospital, and it was going to have a different title. And ABC's like, no, that's not going to make us money. We'll bring back Zach Braff partially for a little bit and then just phone it in for the cashola.
Yeah. Another show that got torn up by the writer's strike back in 2007, Friday Night Lights. Were you a fan of Friday Night Lights TV show?
Nope.
Oh, it was great. Great show. But the second season was already kind of bizarre, and then the writer's strike stopped it, so they couldn't really salvage season 2, and it was a short run of episodes, and it left the characters in precarious places. And then in the third season, they had to kind of write their way out of those situations so they could go tell a different story that would last. Because TV shows back then and on television last like 22, 23 episodes. So you need to get to the other story.
True Blood is a show that probably post season 4, it becomes a downhill spiral, and it's kind of tragic just because there's a lot of cool things that could have been done earlier. Like, what is Sookie Stackhouse? Like, what makes her up? Because she's not fully human, but you don't get that till the last season, and you ruin a cool cameo by Ian McShane. And
I would know because I didn't watch that show, because I would admit to watching it now that I'm a pastor.
Well,
because I think I get thrown out of the church if do we get thrown out if we say we watch True Blood?
No.
I will say that show started before I got saved, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good example. Do TV shows, some of them just get disappointing because they just outlive the original intent. And I feel like True Blood is a good example of that, where you start off with, so it's based on a series of books that were already out there.
The Chronicles of Sookie Stackhouse or something like that.
I can't remember her name. It was Charlene something wrote those books. But they already had a fan base. But then inevitably, you always kind of move beyond where the literary stuff is. And then the TV writers have to start writing their own stuff. And so I think, honestly, I feel like that one went too far too fast. Because for the first few seasons, it's just vampires. Mm-hmm. And then once they started explaining what Sookie Stackhouse was, which I think would have been fine to explore that, they're introducing all the things.
Werewolves.
And
Were-jaguars.
Fairies and monsters. And you're just like, oh, you should have just stuck with what she was. And then each season you could have introduced kind of a new thing.
Yes.
Because it's... The writer of those books, I think it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting way to view the monster verse, which, Frankenstein, Dracula, all that. It's a different take on it, which I think is interesting. But yeah, they just tried to do it too fast. Too much, too fast.
Yeah.
And is it because those HBO seasons, because that seems to happen a lot with the popular HBO stuff, is it just because they take so long to put out and film and the actors themselves don't want to do it, that they want more money, so the shows start costing more? It's just not, it's not feasible long term almost. Game of Thrones was really a victim of it just went too long.
It did. And if you were a fan of Teen Wolf, I was not particularly. But, like, if it's a high school show and they age up each season, then it should not last more than 4 years.
Yeah. I want to talk about a show called Chuck. Did you like Chuck?
I didn't watch Chuck.
With our favorite guy, Zachary Levi, yeah. I'm telling you, half of our pod is just me trying to remember names. Zachary Levi was kind of our introduction to Zach Levi, who we love. There will be no Zach Levi slander on this pod. And I loved Chuck. It was very much like a pop culture nerd's dream because there was a ton of pop culture references in the show. But essentially, it was about a guy, a normal guy who becomes a spy.
Happens to the best of us, really.
Yeah, he gets something like accidentally downloaded into his brain or whatever, and it makes him a valuable asset. But the whole conceit of the show is he works in like a Best Buy type place, and he's being overseen by these two agents. One of them is a hot girl that he ends up liking. And this show, I believe, falls victim to something I'm calling the Ross and Rachel problem. So after the success of Friends, they figured out for the first 2 seasons of Friends, the first full season for sure, because the first season ends on Rachel finding out that Ross likes her. It takes like the whole season because he kind of pines after her. And then in the second season, there's like this kind of will they, won't they? And then it plays out. It takes almost the whole season to play out, but where they're finally together. Now, a lot of people would say that Friends struggles after Ross and Rachel become a thing because part of what we liked was the will they, won't they.
I was okay with them just finally getting together.
Okay, maybe, but I think we want to see that, but the problem is from the story, the thing that hooks us is we're waiting to see that. Then when you see that, now you have to find a new hook. So Chuck falls victim to that because in Chuck, he falls for the pretty spy right away and he pines after her. But then the moment that she gives into that and she kind of likes him too and they become a thing, the show becomes way less interesting because we're not really into that. We're into where he's the fish out of water. And there's something about the guy who pines after the girl who's not really feeling the same way. I don't know what it is about that, but I call it the Ross and Rachel problem.
Well, I call it you weren't developing enough story around it.
Yeah, well, that might be. But you've seen people try this. This is in a lot of shows where there's a character pining after another character, and then like they don't even wait a season now. Like halfway in, they'll take away the tension of that, and they'll have them get together, and then they write themselves inside a box, and you don't really know what to do. If it's ongoing, they almost have to break up at some point.
Looking at you, Superstore.
Yes, exactly. Sitcoms, it's terrible. Almost all the sitcoms do this now, where they present early tension with one of the characters kind of having a crush or an obsession with another character's, and then they resolve it too quickly instead of drawing it out.
So kind of disappointing. Worst season of a show that was popular. I will go with Parks and Rec season 1. Although season 7's the last season, whatever that one was, I think it's 7.
The last season
is not far behind it. But season 1, oh my goodness, they don't have their formula yet.
So I thought a lot about this one. And I think it can be disappointing after you've watched it all the way through and then go back to revisit it. So season 1 of Parks and Rec, okay, so this is by the makers of The Office. And I think the problem with season 1 of Parks and Rec, when I went back and rewatched it, because I thought a lot about this, like, why isn't this very good? It's because they wanted to do something different. So they didn't want to be remembered as the makers of The Office. They wanted to do something different. And as such, they really focus on a few of the characters. They make it a show about Leslie and her friend and who is the dude? The random dude that
Mark
works in Office.
Brandanowitz?
Yes. Really? That first season focuses on those three so much. And then in season 2, it was like they figured out, like, why isn't this as good? Because The Office, it was all about the ensemble. And so it's season 2 where they kind of figure out, like, oh, hey, let's give Ron Swanson some time.
And Andy
Let's
Dwyer.
give Andy Dwyer some time. April Ludgate. They figured out, like,
let's kick Mark Brandanowitz out.
Brandanowitz, get out of here. Tom, you're in. No, more screen time for him. They figured out that
Jerry.
what we liked was the ensemble. And so, yeah, when you go back and revisit Parks and Rec, I've watched it through 3 times. The third time, I didn't even watch season 1. I went straight to season 2.
So that leads me to the last season of The Office, where, oh my goodness, it's brutal. So,
I mean, it's not brutal.
No, it really is brutal because Jim's like, I'm going to go to Philly. And then Pam's like, oh, you're going to go to Philly? I'm going to have the sound guy have a flirtatious, almost affair with me. Like, no one wanted the sound guy in there.
Yeah,
no one.
okay.
And
let's be fair.
Will we go to Philly? Will we won't go to Philly? That was a lame story.
I'm so torn right now because you're right. Of course you're right. I still think it has its moments and it's still better than most sitcoms. But you're right. The whole storyline with Jim and Pam and the sound guy was so awful. It's one of the worst storylines ever. But that's a Ross and Rachel problem. That's the problem. Once they're together, you have a hard time writing drama or some sort of tension into their relationship because the tension was, will they, won't they?
Well, they resolved that one by season 3.
I know, but the longer it goes on, I'm saying the problem starts when they get together.
Now, the previous season, which did not have Michael Gary Scott in it, but had James Spader, I actually really like.
No, that was great. James Spader, I know that season gets some heat, but you're wrong. James Spader is hilarious in that season, and I loved it.
Like, the only thing I might change about it was there was a little too much Gabe. Just a little bit. But
yeah, they really tried to force Gabe on us.
Yeah, and I wasn't here for it. Like, give me more Creed.
Yeah, you already have this ensemble. That was the weird part about the last season or couple seasons of The Office, too. They tried to add some of these younger guys in there. Like, there was the kid from Hot Tub Time Machine was randomly in there.
Wasn't here for that one either.
And, like, yeah, I don't need him. He seems funny. He seems like a funny guy. I just don't need that character. We've got all the characters we need.
You just need to replace Steve Carell. That was it.
Yeah.
Just one person.
Frankly, they could have kept Robert California. That would have been enough. Yeah. That was amazing. And yeah, they brought in, what's her name from Misery? She was the head of Sabre. Like after the company goes to Sabre, Oscar-winning actress.
Yes.
Of course, I can't remember her name, but that was a struggle too. I didn't think that was very funny. She wasn't a very likable person, but so they tried to go that route because Michael Scott was hard to like, but he was. It was in a lovable way. Like he was offensive, but you still loved him. But she was kind of offensive.
Kathy Bates.
And you didn't like her, which is something because Kathy Bates is super likable.
She is for the most part.
Yeah. And so, that didn't work for me either. But
even in AHS Coven.
I'm gonna bring up another show here. And you're going to be like.
Am I going to be triggered?
You're going to get triggered that I'm even bringing it up. The last season of that 70s show. The one without Topher.
No, I 100% agree with that one.
No, I didn't mean you were going to be triggered because you disagree. You're going to be triggered because we tried to block it out of our memory.
Yes. Like, what was his name? Was it Josh Myers, Seth Myers? I think it was Josh. I think it's Seth Myers' brother.
Yeah.
Was in it. And I'm like, this is awful.
It was so bad. So bad. So bad. So much so that that was one of those shows I used to watch at late night, when they showed reruns, and like, no, I couldn't do it. When it was showing that one, no, I'm not watching that, bro. This is trash. This is straight up trash. And I'm so glad that we've come to a point in history too, where Topher has been totally exonerated of all the things. Cause remember it was like he was
He's the issue.
When he left the show, it was the issue. Like maybe he felt everybody was like, he's too big for his britches. And now looking back, we're like, oh, well, there was some things there. Maybe some of the people were problematic and y'all were rallying around him. And Topher was the only one who was like, y'all are a problem.
And he has the most memorable dance in movie history.
Who?
Topher. Spider-Man.
Does he?
3.
Does he dance? I thought it was just.
Oh, no, he doesn't.
What are you talking about? That's Toby.
Yeah, Toby does. Topher's just in the movie. So, yeah.
You're giving him credit when he doesn't deserve it.
He deserves something.
Should we bring up Community Season 4?
So, I'm not down on the hate of Season 4. Like, the issue is Community Season 1, 2, and 3 exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Community is one of those shows that is hurt by the fact that it just comes out like a flaming fireball.
Literally, the first paintball episode, I'm like, can I get a Community tattoo?
Like, I am fully here to tell you I understand and agree with why Chevy Chase had to go. But also, the seasons with him in it are the ones I like to watch.
So I have rewatched the whole show like probably 3 times. And there are definite moments in the last couple of seasons that I'm like, this is funny, this is good. The only issue is you have 1 through 3 to compare it with.
Mm-hmm. There are moments in season 1, even now today, where I will laugh so hard I can't breathe.
Later on, it was probably season 3 because they're starting to get towards the point of Chevy Chase has to go. But like when he gifts or bequeaths LeVar Burton to Troy.
Yes, yeah.
That whole scene of, I told him I never wanted to meet him. I just wanted a picture.
Troy leaves at some point.
Troy leaves not too long after.
And that's a struggle bus because, again, that show's about the ensemble. And when you lose pieces of the ensemble, it hurts it.
So I know part of the reason that he left, Donald Glover being he, was because Troy wasn't like really maturing much as a character. Mm-hmm. And it takes up time.
I don't want mature Troy, though. I want Troy and Abed in the morning.
Well, and part of the issue is, like with a high school show, a community college show can only go on for so long.
But it's hilarious.
But 6 seasons in the movie. Still waiting for the movie.
Hey, to be fair, we've got a community college in our town, and I know people that have been going to that school just as long as those guys went to whatever the name of their college was. Greendale. The Greendale persons.
Yep.
What about Happy Days? Happy Days, like, literally created a term.
Jumping the shark?
Jumping the shark is a reference to an infamous scene in season 5 episode of Happy Days in which Fonzie, like, water skis and goes over a ramp and jumps a shark. It's here it is. Sean Connolly, who coined the phrase, describes it as, quote, the defining moment when you know that your favorite television program has reached its peak, that instant that you know from now on it's all downhill.
How dare you, sir?
I love that it's named after a moment when Happy Days, when you knew it was done.
Like, literally, the Fonz is maybe one of the coolest characters in sitcom history from yesteryear. And here he is, just doing the casual thing of jumping a shark.
He's literally wearing swimming trunks and a leather jacket.
That's the only way I'd have it.
Okay, so I'm just going to go down a list, unless you have any more you want to highlight specifically.
But I have a feeling that this is where I will rampage and you'll get my anger from before we started recording.
Scrubs season 9.
How dare you?
Oh, Scrubs slander. Cody's not here for it.
That one, it
was meant to be a spinoff.
It's meant to be a spinoff. I don't count it.
You don't count it.
I don't count it.
Were you an X-Files watcher?
No.
This lists X-Files season 8. And one of the leads, that's when the season when Fox Mulder left.
Oh,
David Duchovny. That would be a problem.
yeah. I mean, he's literally half of the team.
On this list is Dexter season 8, which I'm just like, that had 8 seasons?
You thought that's where you lost it?
I know. I'm like, no, you lost me after season 2.
I was going to say season 3 is where we start going downhill.
Gilmore Girls season 7. We needed a female presence for this one. I feel like my wife would have thoughts about Gilmore Girls season 7.
That's like saying, yeah, no.
How about the last season? Oh, this one triggers me. The last season of How I Met Your Mother.
That was a show that went on too long.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Especially for the payoff.
Super disappointing. That was like, okay, so here's where How I Met Your Mother and Lost actually have something in common, right? So Lost, a lot of the problems that people have with the series finale of Lost is the Lost creators for years assured fans they're not dead. Remember,
Yeah.
People were floating theories like, oh, they're in like limbo. It was very Catholic. They're in limbo. They're
Purgatory.
They all died. Purgatory. They all died in the crash. And the creators were like, no, they're alive. They're not dead. Then in the last episode, oh, they were dead.
What? I hadn't watched the show.
How I Met Your Mother's the same way in that you're pretty much assured the whole time that he's not going to end up with Robin.
Yep.
Well, he's not ended up with Robin. His mom's someone different. Look, we're even going to float you the real mother in the last season. And then right near the end of the season, like, oh, she has cancer. She dies. And he ends up with Robin. Stupidest ending to a show ever. Hated it.
How I Met Your Stepmother.
Especially because the mother was really cool. She was an awesome character.
Well, she's now a deceased one.
And that was the show that went on too long where you actually characters you liked, you didn't like. This happened to Friends too, where like at some point in the latter seasons, you're like, I don't even like these people. They're not very nice.
I'm over you, Barney.
Who likes Robin from How I Met Your Mother? Show me one person that wants to hang out with Robin besides Patrice. Not now, Patrice. She's so mean to her. It's terrible. Terrible. This, of course, lists the last season of Lost. It lists season 2 of True Detective, which...
Didn't watch that one, so...
I don't know that that's fair because it's a serial, right? Where each season is different characters telling a different story.
Yeah.
So, it's a cheat. And frankly, it's only because season 1 is so good and it captures some zeitgeist.
That's a big word.
Time's a flat circle. I don't do very good McConaughey.
You did not.
So I don't know. It lists the last season of The Office, of course. The last season of Friends, which, yeah. The whole thing with Rachel and Joey before Rachel finally ends up with Ross. It was just weird.
Didn't need it.
And they were trying to, by the end of it, they were trying to prepare it for Joey's spinoff.
Yeah.
Joey's show, when what we really wanted was a Chandler spinoff.
We didn't want any more Friends.
Yeah, no, that's not true. No. I would have watched the Chandler show.
I literally watched the series finale and was like, thank you. We can move on.
This says The Walking Dead season 6. Do you want to talk about The Walking Dead? You seem to have some opinions about it earlier.
So I was on a different page that listed Walking Dead season 7.
Okay.
Because I believe it's season 7 is where we get Negan, who is Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Okay, so is that the season finale of 6, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Like he shows
where
up,
he kills
Glenn.
Glenn, yeah. He kills Glenn. That's the last episode I watched. Go on.
Literally, I'm like, you all have beef with this part? This is where we draw the line. The show is portrayed as, oh, they're trying to survive a zombie apocalypse. Spoiler alert, like post season 2, There is no zombie survival. It is just surviving the other people who have survived the zombie apocalypse. You introduce an actual cool character who disrupts the whole group. Like, I'm here for it. And then there's another character who has a tiger, and he talks with a Shakespearean accent. And he has a friend named Jerry. And Jerry is the guy that plays the foster dad in Shazam. And the guy's just lovable in anything he's in. And everyone's like, no, this series is trash now that Glenn's dead. Glenn should have died in the first episode that he was in.
That's true.
So, no.
Holmes was caught in a dumpster.
Yes.
Okay, can I respond to that? I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you. I do agree that, hey, the whole show, they never lied about what that show was going to be about. Like, don't fall in love with these characters because they're going to do away with them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so my response number one is that dudes with tigers, those are always cool characters.
Yes.
Response number two, Negan is an excellent villain and a great character.
Excellently cast.
Response number three is that just wasn't enough for me. The episode where Negan shows up and kills Glenn, I was kind of done with the show. I never pick it up after that again. I haven't watched any episodes after that. And I think it was just because I think Game of Thrones deserves some of the credit for this. I just got tired of watching shows where I kind of grew attached to characters and they killed them all off.
Spoilers, they killed Coral.
Yeah, they kill everyone. Not Coral. I do miss Andrew. I forget his last name, but his weird Southern accent because he's British.
Yes, it was brilliant. I loved it.
Homeland is on this list, and season 3. Yes, pretty much anything after season 1 of Homeland.
Didn't watch it. So
had Claire Danes. She works for the CIA. She's brilliant, but also she's got mental problems, and she falls for the bad guy at in the end of season 1. Yeah, all of it was a great first season, and then everything after that, it was like they have to rehash. Oh, she's very unstable. Yeah, we know that.
I don't like that, especially since we do know that like government agencies actually. Like where they will discriminate if you have certain mental health diagnoses.
Yeah, she's bipolar.
And so, yeah, she's not going to work for any government entity. Well,
they finally get to that in like season 5 or 6. But at that point, she's so brilliant, we have to bring her back in. She becomes like a Jack Bauer type character.
Nope. They don't do it. I'm sorry. They're the lone entity that can discriminate based off physical and or mental health conditions. Like the Army won't take you, CIA, FBI. You might be lucky to work in the post office.
Yeah. House of Cards season 3 is on this. Were you a House of Cards watcher?
Nope.
That's too bad. House of Cards, the first couple seasons of House of Cards are really, really good.
Is this the show that we can't talk about because of a certain actor?
Well, and that's part of the problem. So he's not even on the last season because at all Kevin Spacey, gets in the water he gets in. And he's not even in the last season. They kill him off. But after season 2, he becomes president, and all of it's almost like the Ross and Rachel problem, except he's not pining after another character. He's pining after the presidency, and he's conniving, and him and his wife are like, look, if you don't watch this show and know that they're loosely based on the Clintons, I don't know what to tell you.
What?
Oh, you didn't get that? House of Cards watcher? Maybe watch it again. It's obviously not straight. They're not totally going off their story, but they're very much like them in the rumors of them, right? In that their marriage was not really a marriage anymore, that they were just a political connection at that point, blah, blah, blah. More things on a list. There's Arrow season 6, of course. Community season 4, the last season of Lost, which we talked about. Parks and Rec season 1 is on this list.
It's rough. the last season of Parks and Rec, I don't like them jumping forward in the future. It becomes really awkward and doesn't really flesh out well, but it was better in season 1.
What about West Wing? Were you a West Wing watcher?
I mean, my parents watched it. I would not always stay and watch the episodes, so.
Season 6 of West Wing is on this list. Yeah. A Year in the Life, Gilmore Girls is on one of these lists. Pretty much, it seems like Gilmore Girls after you get by a certain point.
So I will also throw in Spin City.
Oh, yeah, with Michael J. Fox.
I think after Michael J. Fox leaves, although it still had a couple seasons with old Charlie Sheen, but it wasn't the same show, and it just didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And like Barry Bostwick couldn't save it.
What about New Girl?
Love New Girl.
Season 7 of New Girl.
Oh, you shut your mouth.
Is on this list. Like, do you want me to read it?
Sure.
This is from BuzzFeed. It says this: it wasn't too bad, but it was only yesterday that I realized that's all there is. Netflix never streamed season 7 in my country, and I was convinced I missed some episodes when I watched the final season. I spent all this time thinking that there was way more to season 7 than there was. Imagine my disappointment when I found out the truth. So it was a shortened season, you know.
Okay, like, sorry.
Supernatural season 7? Didn't that have like 20 seasons?
Yes. So,
well, I mean, they're just by numbers, one of them's going to be disappointing, right?
If 95% of your show's great, then you're doing something good. I'm sure Walker, Texas Ranger might have had a bad season if Chuck Norris wasn't Walker.
The last thing on this list is the last season of Modern Family. I didn't watch Modern Family. Did you watch Modern Family?
So I actually did watch like the first 3 seasons. Like after a while, it just kind of feels the same over and over. Like, oh, yeah, we're having issues with our family, and oh, the kid and the mom don't see eye to eye, and yeah, I mean, Phil says something funny.
I think the magic number for sitcoms is probably around 5 seasons.
So if you are a good series, 6 seasons in a movie.
Yeah. Community drop.
Yeah, we're keeping it going.
Yeah.
They made it to season 6. They just need the movie to come out now.
Do you have any more? Any more you want to talk about, or we cover them all?
I mean, of truly disappointing, I think that is the list. There's probably a lot of shows that people were like, you know, it built up so good in like the first season, and then the second season really didn't deliver. And I have a couple of those shows in my mind, but like no one and their mom watched them because they were like sci-fi or something.
Yeah.
Channel shows. And
yeah. It's got to be something that was really good. Like, I'm looking at some of the contents on these articles. You got people being like, well, season 6 of Once Upon a Time. It's like, no, Once Upon a Time was always trash. So it can't be disappointing. You can't be disappointed by that.
Okay, so I do have one.
Oh.
House.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, like, after they introduced the interns, maybe that first season of the interns is okay, but then it goes on too long.
Okay, this deserves its own category. When the show is based around one very engaging and unique character, as in Dr. House, played amazingly by Hugh Laurie. Speaking of Brits who do good American accents.
Yes.
That show, the cycle of it just was too much. It was just the same old cycle. Oh, he's hooked on Vicodin because he's crippled, you know, like, and oh, he makes rash decisions, and oh, he wants everyone to hate him.
And it's not lupus.
It's environmental.
But then, like, they introduced the more doctors to the team, but they're basically kind of like interns. And Olivia Wilde's introduced, and is it Penn?
Cal Penn. Yeah, Cal Penn. Olivia Wilde. That's the first time I saw her on anything.
And like for that initial season, it's good, but then they jumped the shark.
Yeah. I will say that that's one of those shows that follows like a kind of a freak of the week storyline where it's kind of self-contained in each episode. While there were elements that were carrying over.
Yes.
That's one of the few shows that follows something like that I really dug. Really dug House.
Dave Matthews.
Yes. He had a great, like an ER type supporting role in one episode.
So, like, yeah, I mean, you get random people just coming in and out of the show all the time. And then you have, like, some things kind of in the background that are kind of overarching, but not really at the forefront. And then they bring in a whole bunch of new people to try to revive it. And then, like, after that first year, the new people, you might as well just tune it off.
They, by the way, did their will they, won't they right, the Ross Rachel problem. Because like the tension between him and Cuddy is never really resolved.
No.
They actually did that pretty well.
Yeah.
Because how could you have a relationship with that dude? It wouldn't make any sense. He's too volatile.
Shockingly.
Yeah. All right. What seasons did we miss? What are some of your most disappointing seasons of television? How much did I offend you by saying it can't be Full House? Because the whole thing was disappointing. Let us know in the comments below the social media posts for this episode. And thank you so much for listening. If you wouldn't mind, if you like this show, you should subscribe if you haven't already.
Mash the subscribe button.
Mash that subscribe button. Then give us a review. Give us 5 stars. And then if you can write out a review like you can on Apple, please do so. Or Good Pods, please do so. That helps our visibility, attracts more people to the pod. And then, of course, sharing the pod, sharing our social media posts, telling people on your news feeds why you like the podcast. That all helps us because you want to help us, because we want to do more and more stuff. We want to go to more and more Comic Cons to create more and more community that can only mean good things. We love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Pop culture faster.